Hello and welcome back to our channel. Remember to click subscribe, click like, and also drop a comment and click the notification bell. We're back today with an answer to one of the questions we've been receiving lately about long distance relationships. And Rose will read out the question or the type of question we've been getting, and then together we'll have an informal chat and we'll see what sort of tips and advice we can give. This will just be our opinion. There's so many different ways you can approach these type of questions and problems. So, Rose, can you go ahead and give us an idea of the question we've had?
Okay, I have some messages here, like El Maureen from Claire and from Judith. But and then there's also a comment, but someone messaged me that asking me, this is sa Tagalog. I will read first in Tagalog. Good afternoon, may tanong po ako. Pag magsali sa relationship or is it difficult the LDR relationship? Same. The question is same if it's difficult to be in an LDR or long distance relationship. And also to Claire, same question also. And then someone commented on our video. Wait. Oh, here. Um, Mr. Dave Brooks. He comment that how hard was it for you to get Rose to come to you? Like it going to cost arm in a leg. That is his comment. So yeah, how difficult it is to be in a long distance relationship. Okay. So George, what can you say about or is it really difficult? Can you give some tips or advice about this? Because I will also share, but I wanna know first your opinion about this.
Yeah, thank you for that little recap, Rose. Of course, no one really goes into relationships and expects or hopes it's going to be a long distance relationship. So it's something you don't really prepare for until you're already in it. And there's always going to be extra complications. I like to call it friction when you're long distance, because even though we have wonderful technological ways of communicating, it's never going to be quite as good as being in person. So you will be experiencing very strong emotions if the relationship's going well. And the fact that you can't interact with this person face to face, it can test your patience. It's very natural to be frustrated in these situations. And so you should also realize that it's not a negative that it feels frustrating or difficult. It should feel that way, because that feeling is what will drive you to, as I call it, close the distance at some point. If you're too comfortable, I'm not saying this is wrong, but if you're very comfortable, then why do you need to change it? You could be long distance forever. Some people may want to do that, but I think it's more common that people want to get together as soon as possible. So all of the questions we've had have looked from slightly different angles, and that's how a lot of problems like this work. You'll have your own take on this, and we'll all find a different aspect of this more challenging than the next person. So a couple of these examples, I think some of the Filipino people, they were asking more generally how difficult it is. I'm going to guess and think it's more on maybe the communication and just making it work. The general, is it going to work feeling? And yeah, your communication is tested a lot more. You need to be a little bit more careful. Looking at it quite finely, you need to be a bit more careful. You've got maybe less of your senses can work. For example, if I send a message to Rose, because she can't see my body language, and if it's a text message, she can't hear my voice, the tone, it means I need to be quite careful with what I write. It might not be a good idea to write a joke, for example. It might be better to wait for video call where she can see my body language and my tone of voice, so that you don't get the wrong message. Yeah, and I'll let Rose talk in a minute, but I'll also mention David Brooks' question. And for anyone Filipino, his phrase, does it cost an arm and a leg? That's a very common English phrase. It means Is it going to be a big sacrifice? Is it going to cost a lot? That's always going to vary very much depending on which country you're going to visit. My advice is to plan and to save a little bit every month if you can. And this approach will mean that any costs will be easier to deal with. Yeah, plan it out. Write down what's the most all these things are going to cost. And if I run through it very quickly for us, the big costs are, I would always advise visiting once, and that's flights and any accommodation and living costs. And then you'll have your visa application, you'll have any final flights to your new country, and then whether you will get married or not along the way. That quite often happens around the time of the visa, either just before or just after. And that's, I've probably mentioned about 4 different things that are all substantial amounts of money. And so, yeah, you need to plan these out and be understanding of each other, that some of these things like the wedding are very typical for a couple, but the multiple flights, the visas, these are all additional expenses that other couples wouldn't have to worry about. Before I hand over to Rose, I'll add one financial upside. Now, of course, you may want to send little surprise gifts, and that still costs money, but you will save a bit from the fact that you unfortunately haven't got the time to hang out with each other on the weekends and in the evenings. So video calls, they're not quite the same as a lovely meal in a restaurant together, but they are free or next to, or very close to being free. So as long as you're being wise with your finances in the lead up to these big expenses, you can definitely manage them. So Rose, I've probably stolen a lot of your ideas there, but I'm sure you've got something to add.
Yeah, it was all right. Now, like, you know, it will work. The long distance relationship will work to both people who are willing to, like, willing to stay, willing to sacrifice, and willing to make it work. Before, I said, I don't want to be in a long distance relationship. That was before.
I
Because
agree.
I, s- I just said that because I just think that that's difficult. You're not seeing each other. You're not. The dog are noisy. Okay.
That's the Philippines for you.
Okay. But I said that because for me, when I heard someone saying, "Oh, long distance is very difficult," I just think maybe that's difficult. But when I met you, and then I see something on you because I'm willing and you're willing, and I want to make it work, and I want to choose you and you choose me, so it will work. Even it's long distance relationship, how hard it is, it will work, and it can be easy to both, like, to both of us, because we are willing. Even how hard it is, we will make it easy
Yeah,
because we're willing to sacrifice even our time. But I'm willing to wait, to sleep late, you're willing to sleep late, you're willing to wake up early just to communicate with me, and just to communicate with you, and then spending time together, even how busy you are, how busy I am. But because we're both willing and we are choosing each other every time, every day. Because if one of you will give up, because you're thinking, oh, this is very difficult, I can't make it, it will not happen, it will not be successful. But when it's all in your mindset, when you think it will happen, I trust you, I trust this guy, I trust my partner, and he or she trusts me so much. So by trusting each other, it will work, and by patience, waiting, and sacrificing, it will work and it will be successful.
yeah, no, it's a very good points there, and you touched on the importance of trust. And we've been so blessed so far that we haven't. I don't stop and realize how important the trust is, because you almost take it for granted in our case. But that is always going to be tested to a higher level in a long distance relationship. Yeah, you are in different places. You're not going to be seeing each other physically for long periods. At some stage, you're always spending a lot of your time investing it, as well as financially investing in the relationship, and you will have to do a lot of that before you start seeing the biggest fruits of your investment. There's a period where your trust is what will see you through that period after you've made the investment, and then when you get the biggest fruits from that relationship. And that's just so different to a real an in real life relationship. But the positive message and your mindset's really important. And so people will ask, okay, how do I change that? Your attitude towards it will always come from within more than anything. Outside sources can do a little bit to correct you. We all have those not so good days, but your main attitude and drive will come from within you. People like Rose and we're here to give you that little nudge on if you have a day where you've had a difficult day and it's you're maybe lost a bit of faith, then tuning into guys like us, and there's loads of wonderful other resources as well, can help you, and we can remind you that there's lots of success stories out there. If you want it enough, keep the right attitude, you can do this. The proof is out there. And there will be many more successful long distance relationships that haven't even started yet, and there's no reason why you can't be one of them.
Yes. In this world, there are a lot of distractions, there are a lot of temptation, but it's up to you how you handle it. Because the important is how you handle your emotions, your mind. Like, of course, even whatever temptation, if you're always thinking of the like, he or she is busy, but you're always thinking that I'm in a relationship, and then of course by respecting the people your partner is very important, because you can avoid distractions and temptation if you respect your partner.
That's another good point. Yes, and you should be able to do that, but it is true, if they're not there physically, you can forget their presence and their importance in your life if you're not careful. So you need, close communication every day or regularly always helps, but you do need to develop a mindset as if that person is walking with you when you go out in the evening, or when you go to work, whenever you do anything, because that's part of the mindset. Before you know it, if everything goes to plan, that's how it will be. And on that subject, you'll both probably have a very different change of lifestyle when you're together, and it will be very sudden. A lot of relationships nowadays, it will be gradual. So you'll gradually go from being a single person to in some sort of long-term relationship, and you'll gradually spend a little bit more time with that other person, step by step. Long distance relationship, it kind of comes, it's like one of those vehicles that lurches forward and then stops and then accelerates. It comes in very sudden pulses, and hopefully when you do get together permanently, that's like a sudden switching on of an engine that will never stop. So in our example, Rose is coming from a family environment where she's around a lot of people, friends and family, and me. I'm around some people, but I actually work internationally, so I don't spend as much time with my close family as I would in an ideal situation. I visit them sometimes. I'm lucky to have close friends here, but it means that when we get together, Rose might miss some of that very close, large family network, whereas for me, it will be an increase having that one person around me all the time. And I'm not sure whether Rose will hear this, but this is something we might include in the video, just a small amount of the connection problems we've had during this call. And that's another great example. This is something that in the Philippines is very common. And while I feel I'm quite understanding of it, you can really see how it would affect your communication even further. And so you need the right attitude towards that. You need to just see it as another little obstacle that we're both very capable of overcoming. It's really frustrating, and I don't always have the best attitude towards it, but it's something you can overcome, and it won't be the first little obstacle you have in your communication. And if you can manage communicating with each other internationally with a poor connection, then it sets you up so well for how you will communicate when you're in person.
Yeah, my connection is really bad here. That's why it's sometimes blurred. That's true, George. And then our communication is really important. And yeah, it is a lot. Like this one example, this one, the connection, the distance, the time, like if busy. Yeah, but yeah, it will work. It will all work when you find ways.
Yeah, and just changing track a bit to the more financial questions, I think we can do separate videos on those and maybe give some examples in the future.